So you're looking to move up to medium format. You've seen some pictures, you've probably heard about the larger negatives, and you're looking to spend some of your money on something bigger. I've made this video to help with that. What I've done is I've compiled a list of all the medium format cameras that I feel are sort of relevant and worth considering when you move into the format. Now, I'm not saying this list is fully exhaustive, but I've done a pretty fine-toothed search over eBay, various different used camera sites. These are the ones you can get for reasonable prices. You can still buy them used in quite high numbers, and yeah, they each kind of occupy the top of their game. And then there's the step down, which is the cheap knockoff of the top one. And then there are different systems. So you can have system cameras, rangefinders, more on that later. I was originally going to do this video as a single hour-long epic, but I decided that it was probably worth me talking a little bit about medium format in general, and then splitting off into smaller videos about 6x6, 6x7, 6x4, 5. So if you already know about medium format and you're just looking at the camera to buy in the format you've chosen, you should probably just skip straight into one of those shorter videos. I am going to talk a little bit now about the differences between rangefinders and system cameras. I've got here a Bronica ETRS. Now this is a 6x4, 5 system camera, and this is pretty standard for a lot of the medium format bodies. What you've got is a removable back. So you can have one of these for black and white, one of these for colour. You get a waist level viewfinder. I'm going to cut to a video through the top of this, but you can pose your shot looking down through the top out the front. This can be a little bit of a problem if you want to shoot portraits, because obviously if you use this, you're always getting a shot of someone's waist. So you can also get, if I press the right button, a prism finder for these cameras. Now this is actually a metered prism that you can put on, and most of the system cameras have their own version of this. So yeah, you can see I've configured this into kind of portraiting modes. I can actually go even further, and if I take this, not 100% sure how this goes, but this winder comes off, and you can even turn this into a right-sided grip. So that's my film winder. If I take that off and put this on, there you go. That's a pretty decent setup for hand holding for portraits. But the beauty of this is you can configure these however you want. So if you're only using it for, let's say, landscapes, and you're hiking with it and you're getting really far away from your car, then perhaps you'd leave the grip and you'd leave the viewfinder and just use the waist level one. If you are shooting large quantities of film and you don't have a lot of time to reload, what you could do is buy multiple backs and load them with the same film, so that instead of reaching into your bag, popping the back open and loading up your new roll, you could just reach for another back, put it straight on, and you'd be ready to keep going. The other sort of big distinction in the medium format cam is the rangefinders. I don't know if you guys have seen 35mm rangefinders, but they're traditionally a lot smaller than their SLR counterparts. Of course, despite me calling these system cameras, they are still SLRs. They do have the big clunky mirror housing in them, so you save a bit of weight with the rangefinder, but they're a little bit less versatile. And in some cases you're not even able to remove the lenses. That said, some of the rangefinder lenses are absolutely fantastic. They are really seen as the best in class for a few of the categories I'm going to list. The Mamiya rangefinders in particular are fantastic cameras, but they are unbelievably expensive. They can go for up to £2,000, £3,000 for a really mint set with a couple of lenses. So keep that in mind. If you want to have the best medium format camera, it's going to be the most expensive medium format camera, because even though a lot of the pros have abandoned the film market, the best cameras still command quite a high price. They're still used for sort of fine art and some technical photography is still done on film just because of the availability of the old kit. Let me put the Bronica away. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to talk about the different frame sizes within medium formats. Now I've got this handy chart here which just shows you the different shapes on the negative that each camera cuts out. So all medium format film cameras use this film. This is a roll of 120 roll film, and you can see it's different from 35mm in that it's just backing paper which conceals inside this strip of emulsion. Because the format sizes are different, you can see on this chart that there are a few different sizes, that you'll actually be demarcating this roll into a differing number of shots depending on how big your format is. If you shoot 6x45 film with this, you'll get 15 shots per roll, but if you shoot something like 6x7, you'll only get 10. Now, it might matter to you if you're shooting very expensive film, but also if you're sort of a beginner to film photography in general and you're worried about messing shots up, or if you're worried about the light and you want to bracket a scene, particularly if you're using films with a lower exposure latitude, like for example Fuji Velvia, you might be unsure, but because the scene in front of you is so nice, you might want to shoot it half a stop overexposed, correctly exposed, and then half a stop underexposed, just to give you that kind of latitude when you develop. If you're doing that, and if you look at the prices of Fuji Velvia, you might immediately think, oh my god, I need to shoot something cheaper. And yeah, in a way, shooting 6x45 is cheaper because you get an extra amount of images per roll. 6x6 will give you 12 per roll, 6x8 will give you 9. 6x9 is pretty large negative each time. That will give you 8 shots per roll. And when you go up to the panoramic formats, so 6x17 is what I'm going to look at the end. 6x17 is something like that, and accordingly you'll only be getting 4 images. Every time you load a roll, that's it, 4 pictures. So every time you press the shutter, you want to be pretty confident when you're using something like that, because you might not always be able to bracket that. There is another type of film called 220 film, which I'm going to mention and then strongly advise against in a sort of just because they don't make it anymore and because it's very hard to get hold of. It's a bit of a trap that people fall into. Now, most TLRs and most rangefinders can actually accommodate both sizes of films, but when they have films with removable backs, like the Bronica back here, they'll tell you this says on the side 120, and this can only take 120 film. Now, 220 film will fit into it, but because the backing paper is different in 220 film, because it's twice as long as 120, the backing paper actually runs out halfway through and then starts again later. The distance between the film and the pressure plate is slightly more on 120 because it's the film plus that. On 220 it's just the film, so you have focus shift problems. It also might tension differently because of the unexpected length. So stay away from that. If you can find it, great. But if you buy a camera that's 220 specialized and it can't be loaded, then it's not going to take any pictures. Another quick point about formats is that you have to be aware of your compositional preferences when you look at your formats. So if you look at this 6x45, it's quite pleasing. It's a 4:3 rectangle. So I guess you could test out which formats you like by cropping your own images to that kind of constraint. 6x6 is the most interesting one. It's the only sort of square format, and it lends itself brilliantly to, I'd say, 1 in 50 or so compositions, but you will find yourself cropping a lot. You can account for that. You can leave a bit of space on either side when you shoot your 6x6 images. And you have to bear in mind that if you want a rectangle, you can, with a 6x6, you never have to turn your camera, which is a bit of an advantage of it. But yeah, you might want to think about different compositional techniques. I know, for example, that symmetry and central compositions lend themselves really well to squares, but it's interesting for a headshot and portrait. You do end up with sort of the tall figure in the middle and then that kind of strange empty space on the sides. But you are using a very big negative with medium format, and however you crop it, it's going to be bigger than 35mm. So I wouldn't worry too much about cropping. Some people get very purist about it, but I wouldn't listen to them. 6x7 is less close to a square than 6x6, but it isn't a square, and 6x6 is. Sorry, 6x7 is further from a rectangle than 6x45, but still relatively rectangular. Now this was a very popular format with most sort of magazine photographers. So you can see that kind of, it's fairly close to 4x5, it's closer to 2x3. It's very easily croppable for whatever area of the page they need to fill. 6x7 is massive. I'm actually just going to do a quick, if I just add 35mm frames to this, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a little bit of overlap, but you can see that it is way in excess of the quality you're going to get out of 35mm. So yeah, choose your aspect ratio when you choose your format, and don't be too afraid to crop if it doesn't always suit the image. That's just about it for the format stuff. So with that in mind, I'm going to go straight into 6x45. And of course, if you're looking to also play the next video, there's a link where the film format stuff was, that if you click that, it should take you straight to 6x45. So I'll see you there.
Damn.